A histogram is a bar graph that displays the data in the form of a distribution of frequencies. So it is a technique or a plot that makes it easy for you to visualize or to see the distribution of the data. Each class width or bar width represents the base of the bar, and the heights of the bar represents the frequency. A frequency polygon plot, on the other hand, is a graph that displays the data in the form also of a distribution of frequencies, but instead of using bar plots, it uses straight lines. But this means that the frequency polygon plot and the histogram plot are the same. The height of each point of those lines represents the frequency of the class, the same as the definitions used in the histogram. Another way that you be able to use to represent the distribution, although the distribution is less evident than histogram or frequency polygon, is the box plot. Now the applications of these visualization techniques, the histogram, the frequency polygon, the box plot, is so that you be able to quickly understand the data by determining the distribution of the data, whether they are normally distributed, skewedly distributed, etc. We can also use the histogram, frequency polygon, and the box plot to check for outliers in the data. This is an example of a histogram. As mentioned, the bar width represents the class and the height of the bar plots. The bars represents the frequency or how often uh, the range within the bar width occurs. While this is the frequency polygon plot. Now this plot is drawn from the same data set that's used to plot the previous plot. So that is why they are similar in nature. The points used to draw this plot is the middle points of the bar plot. So the topmost point in this plot is the middle of the topmost point of the bar plot. The pie chart and the bar plot, not the histogram plot. This is separate than the histogram plot because histogram plot is arranged, the data is arranged in a way that we look at the frequency and the class width and the range of the range within that frequency instead of the actual values. So the pie chart and the bar plot is a visualization technique. Techniques are the visualization techniques for ungrouped data. And we use these plots to present categorical data. That means data that can be that is separated by categories. The pie chart is a circle. I think you've are quite familiar with this because you see them in many reports issued by the government, issued by industries when illustrating certain points of the percentage of a certain category in their product line or in the fiscal expenditure, for example. So the pie chart is a circle and it is divided into sectors in that circle according to the percentages of each parameter. So the bar plot, on the other hand, displays the magnitude of each parameter in relation to each other in the form of bars. The objective of these two plots are the same, which is to show the percentage or the difference between between the different categories in the data. Now we use these ungrouped data visualization techniques to determine the magnitude or percentages of the parameters in relation to each other. This is an example of a pie chart where you can clearly see that the very good is larger than the not good, while the largest percentage of the data consists of the good category. This pie chart requires the viewer or the user to assess the difference in width, difference in area. For example, the good area is large, so you can clearly see that the good area is uh, has a larger magnitude than the not good area. But this technique is less useful if the amount of areas between the different categories are about the same, where it takes a longer time for the human mind to differentiate whether one area is bigger than the other if those areas are roughly the same size. So that is one of the disadvantage of using a pie chart instead of a bar plot. Now the human mind is more attuned to look for differences in height than differences in area. So for this bar plot, that shows the different categories of elements: copper, lead, zinc, cadmium, and chromium. You can see that the highest concentration is the concentration of lead, while the lowest is copper. And you can directly quickly see this by comparing the heights of these two bars. Take note that you can also easily differentiate that cadmium is higher than chromium uh, by assessing the heights between the two bars. So although these bars are quite different in values, and then you can clearly see them, but you can also imagine that if these categories are roughly about the same height, you can quickly assess whether one height is higher than the other um, by assessing the heights, because the human mind, from studies, it shows that the human mind is easier to differentiate the heights than the area. This is actually a better alternative than the pie chart when trying to shows the difference in magnitude of between different categories. This is an example of a visualization technique for ungrouped data, and this is called a Pareto chart. It's a combination of bar plot and a line plot. Now, the Pareto chart is a bar graph used to present categorical data similar to bar plot. It's a combination of bar plot and frequency plot. So here, the bar plot is arranged in a descending manner where the highest concentration or the highest category will be put on the left, or the lowest concentration will be put on the right. And you can see that the highest concentration is lead, and because of the height, and it's on the leftmost, and the lowest concentration is copper because it's on the rightmost. And you can also assess the percentage of the concentration uh, between categories. For example, you see that the line is increasing progressively as they go from lead to copper. And if you notice the line between zinc and copper, the progression is less because the concentration difference between zinc and copper is lower. So for this particular example, you see that the increase is gradual, but so it's less interesting. But in other situations where the increase is a large difference between one value and the next, so you can see that you would see that the line would increase greatly for between two different categories. For example, here we can actually see for lead and cadmium where the slope between the 2 points are steeper than the slope between zinc and copper. Now, the application of this, why you use this Pareto chart is for you to determine the magnitude of the categories in relation to each other, similar to a bar plot, with an added information uh, of how fast it increased between different categories given by the line plot. Another visualization technique for ungrouped data is time series. And time series are just used for time series data where one of the columns is a time parameter, for example, dates or months or hours and minutes. A time series graph is used to display the data that is collected over a period of time. And we use this data to show the changes of the parameters with time. So in this graph, you can see that the control line increases with time and it levels out after 120 minutes, while the GOP line levels out at the 120 minutes as well, but at a lower magnitude compared to the control line. This graph is mainly used to show these trends, whether they are increasing or decreasing, or maybe increasing and decreasing later. It can be quickly be seen in the data if you use this visualization technique.